coming back to our ever busy You Can Too kitchen. The recipe I'm going to do this time, I've been doing it since I was at school and dinosaurs were roaming past the kitchen windows. It's a great one to make with the kids. I used to make it with my son when he was little. Now he's old enough to make it himself, and he frequently does. But it's a lovely recipe. It's a quick and easy scone based pizza. The scone base is an all-purpose scone mix. It's the kind that you use to make cheese scones and things like that, but it works brilliantly with the pizza, and you haven't got all the messing around with the yeast and all the rest of it. So in my bowl I'm going to put 8 ounces. Again, the ingredients will be in the description, so, and all the quantities and everything. I think I've also measured the bowl that I'm using, the baking tray that I'm using, so that's in there for you too. I've got 8 ounces of self-raising flour in my bowl. To that I'm going to add about half a teaspoon of salt and 2 ounces of softened butter. Using your hands, old-fashioned method, coat your butter in your flour and then just rub it between your fingers, and you're just rubbing the flour into the butter. You can see what I'm doing there. It's exactly the same way as you make pastry and all the rest of it. It's just a breadcrumb mix you're looking for. So I've got my flour and butter and salt in there, and it's just gone to a breadcrumb stage. You can see it's just all mixed in, well mixed in. I've got a 1/4 pint of milk here. Now you may not need all of that because you don't want it sloppy. I often find that you don't actually use all of the milk. I'm going to put about half in and just stir it in with a knife. Right, I've only actually used about 3 ounces, but as I say, do it by, you know, feel. You'll see this is starting to come together now. I don't want it overly soggy, but don't overwork it because you don't want it as tough as old boots. I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of flour on my side. Make sure you wipe it over because you don't want bits in your pizza base. And turn that out onto my floured surface. Right, I'm just going to knead it in a little bit. As I say, I don't want to overwork it, but I do need all my bits incorporated. And I'm just going to, I've got my baking sheet here. I'm just going to roll this to the size of this. So I've rolled my scone mix out. You don't want it as thick as you have it for scones because you're not making a scone, you're making a pizza base. I've got my baking tray here. I'm just going to sit that on top, and I can see that that's perfectly fine. Don't want big sides on it, just want it to fit the bottom, come a little bit up the sides. Roll it over the rolling pin to about halfway, and then just roll it onto your baking tray, and then just work it into the edges. If you've got excess pieces, like the edges around here, just fold them in. It'll create just a slightly thicker crust in places, but it's all delicious, it's all perfect, it's not a problem. Okay, so that's my pizza base, or scone base, nicely worked into my baking tray. So we're going to leave that there for a couple of minutes. So we're moving that to one side. Okay, I'm going to make the tomato sauce to go on the base of the pizza now. In here I've got my usual can of chopped tomatoes, but I've drained the excess liquid off because I don't want it to be soggy. I've got 3 cloves, I'm lying to you, 3 cloves of garlic. Just throw those straight in. I'm going to add a good tablespoon of tomato puree. This sauce base that I'm making now, you can actually freeze it, so you'll have more than enough to do 3 or 4 pizzas. So use it on what you're going to use today, and then just freeze the rest down. Ice cube trays are brilliant for freezing it. Freeze it down in the ice cube trays, tip it out of the ice cube trays and put it in a plastic bag, and it'll keep for as long as you want it, and then you know you've got it in the freezer. Just take a few out, defrost them and pop it on your pizza. So in my bowl I've got my drained chopped tomatoes, a tablespoon of tomato puree, salt, pepper, 3 cloves of garlic, and I'm just adding a really good pinch. It's probably about a dessert spoon of Italian seasoning. If you haven't got one of these whizzers, you can feed the tomatoes, push the tomatoes through a sieve. You can grate your garlic and everything else, just mix it in together. I'm just going to whiz it down with my whizzy. It's going to take a couple of seconds. Okay, so that's my tomato sauce all whizzed down, but as I say, it'll go through a sieve just as easily. You just need to put the tomatoes through the sieve, and the rest you can just mix in. I'm going to put a couple of tablespoons to start with, just to see how it spreads out, and because you don't want it immensely thick. It's a taster. It's not. There's nothing worse than biting into a pizza and just tasting tomato. Right, so I did just use the 2 tablespoons. The rest I shall freeze down, because I know that that's only taken 2 tablespoons. I will freeze it in 2 tablespoon portions. You can do it in little plastic bags. As I say, if you want to, you can do it in ice cube trays and then just take out as much as you need. Okay, so on to the pizza. I've got just some onion rings here, just slice down them, and you're not going for any art awards or anything. It's just my favourite good old rustic food. So I've got my pizza base, my tomato sauce. I'm just putting onions on now. You can put whatever you want on. We're having on here obviously the things that we like. I've used 2 onions here. If you want more, put more. If you want less, put less. That is fine for me, so I've only actually used about 1.5. On top of that, I'm going to put slices of tomato. Right, so I've got my onions, my tomato on there. In the middle, this is about the middle, I'm just going to sprinkle over some more of my Italian seasoning, because it gives it so much flavour. Make sure you get it right to the edges, because you want the flavour right to the edges. Use as much or as little as you like. We like a lot. I'm just going to grate some garlic over. Again, you don't want a huge amount. You don't want it controlling the flavour, but you want a taste of it in there. Okay, so we've got garlic on there. I'm putting the mushrooms on next. The reason the mushrooms go on next is because they do need to be covered. If you put mushrooms into the oven without them being covered, then they'll just shrivel up and go horrible and hard and really not nice at all. So you put your mushrooms on, then you put a few more coatings on, and then you cook it. But we're going to carry on and put some more coatings on, and we'll come back when we're nearly ready to go in the oven. Right, so we've got our pizza how we like it. As you can see, we've split it in half because I don't like meat on my pizzas and my lovely cameraman does. Now I've got my balls of mozzarella. You buy them in, they come in like a bag of water. Just drain the water off. Please don't buy the ready grated stuff. It's covered in flour and it's really not very good. This is nice stuff. I'm going to do it on the coarse side of the grater. It's not the easiest cheese to grate, but you don't need it perfect because you're going to be pulling it and stretching it over your pizza. For the size of pizza we're doing, I've got 4 balls of mozzarella, but you can again add more or less, it's up to you. That's our mozzarella all grated. It doesn't matter if there are a few lumps because it is a lovely cheese. It's just, it'll go gooey and oozy and stretchy. It will spread out and melt into the pizza. So we're just going to sprinkle this over the top, making sure you get right to the edges, or as close to the edges as you can get without it falling off. But again, also remember, it will ooze and goo down the sides. It doesn't matter if you've got lumpy bits like that because it'll melt. As I say, we've used 4 balls of mozzarella on this. I've set my oven at 180 degrees. Normal scones you cook at quite a high temperature quite quickly. Because I don't want a soggy bottom, I want this to be cooked through.
I want to put it quite low in my oven, low down I mean, and as I say, I'll cook it at about 180, which will help cook the bottom off, so we're not getting like a burnt top and a raw bottom. And all this cheese will all melt and goo into the pizza, and as I say, it's going to be absolutely beautiful. Right, more herbs on top of your pizza, again just a fine sprinkle this time, but again right to the edge, and believe me, they will taste gorgeous. In here I've got just one chilli. We've put some chilli through it. I've taken out the seeds and the membrane because I don't want the heat, I just want the taste, because chilies actually taste really nice, especially if you get the sort of thicker ones. So we've got chilli on there. And then olives just popped over wherever you fancy them, if you like olives. We're using green, use black, use stuffed olives, use whatever you want, or if you don't like olives, don't use them. As I keep saying, cookery is what you like, it's trial and error. And I think that is about perfect. Just gonna, because I can't stand waste as we know, grab those bits of cheese that have fallen off. So that's our pizza ready. It does look really, really deep at the moment, but trust me, it'll cook down and it'll be just as scrumptious as everything else. I'm going to put it in the oven at 180 degrees centigrade, that's 350 Fahrenheit, which is gas mark 4, and it's going to be in there for about 30 to 45 minutes. Check it after that. As I say, I'm putting it low in the oven so I get my bottom cooked as well as my top. Okay, so our pizza's had about 45 minutes in the oven. As you can see, it's lovely and crispy on the top. The base is cooked through. You're going to get some liquid in it because obviously your vegetables have gone in raw. And you're going to get some cooking liquid coming off of your vegetables. Okay guys, so that's about it for this video. Hope you've enjoyed watching, and I hope it will get you cooking really soon, because you can too. Please, please, please like this video for us, subscribe to our channel, touch the little bell icon to get notifications when we post new videos. Thank you for watching today. We hope you'll join us again soon in the You Can Too kitchen. Thanks, bye.